If you have a complaint, then you can leave. This is our home. I finally lost my temper at the person in front of me who was yelling at me. Sheesh, I really did it, didn't I? I thought so for a moment, but I had no regrets. My name is Susan, 33 years old. I live with my husband John and our 3-year-old daughter, Lily. I started working part-time at a local supermarket after Lily started kindergarten. Although my days are nothing special, I've come to appreciate my ordinary life. But for the past 6 months, I've been bothered by something.
Hey, Susan, this is a stylish outfit. You should have been careful when washing it.
The person showing me the slightly wrinkled clothes complained. She's John's sister, and my sister-in-law. Her name is Patricia. She's unmarried, and as far as I remember, she's 40 years old. Huh? I didn't know. It was just mixed in with the usual laundry, so I didn't notice.
I would think you would know it's an expensive one just by looking at it. But I suppose you wouldn't understand, being fond of non-brands, Susan.
When she said that, she went back to her room with a face like it can't be helped. Well, you should wash it yourself then, I said under my breath. It was always like this. Patricia seemed to take it for granted that I would take care of things for her. Even after I had done her laundry, she treated me like this. It was so frustrating, and for some reason, I was even preparing my sister-in-law's lunch.
You're making Lily's lunch, right? Then could you make mine too?
I tried to refuse, suggesting she should make her own, but she responded,
I've never made lunch before. My mom always did it for me.
I don't care. I'm not your mother. Then, this stupid sister-in-law took my daughter's lunchbox to the office without permission, which I made early in the morning. I lost it. Couldn't you tell it was Lily's? Just by looking at it? Lily was crying this morning because her favorite lunchbox was missing. Despite how angry I was, she just responded,
I thought you'd made it for me since it was on the table. I'm sorry.
With a silly grin on her face. What's with that face? It's not cute at all, I thought to myself. By the way, her review of the lunch was,
I'm on a diet, so it was just the right amount.
She could at least say thank you. I suggested she could just buy lunch, but she replied she didn't want to because it would be unbalanced nutritionally. As a sort of revenge, I made her lunches filled with frozen meals a few times, but it didn't seem to bother her. Basically, it was clear she just wanted to make her own life easier. Enough! Half a year ago, we began living in this house with my in-laws. Since we moved here, I've found myself getting irritated much more frequently. Even if I told John about it, he didn't seem to take it seriously, while I was begrudgingly doing the housework.
Susan, I'm sorry.
My mother-in-law, leaning on her cane, started a conversation. She had lost her husband about a decade ago and had continued to work as a full-time employee since then. She had slightly high blood pressure, which led to her suffering a stroke one day. Fortunately, she survived, but was left with a slight paralysis on her right side. With the help of a cane and leg brace, she could still manage to walk. However, maintaining her job was too much of a challenge, so she had to quit her long-term employment. Now she lives on her pension.
It's a real lifesaver that you've come. Thank you, Patricia. As always, I apologize, she said.
My mother-in-law had no language impairment and could converse like this. Whenever my sister-in-law and I had a disagreement, she would always apologize to me like this. To my selfish sister-in-law, my mother-in-law would regularly say,
Enough is enough. You should leave right now.
But my sister-in-law would just respond with,
Huh? Why? It's convenient to live here since it's close to work. Okay, I'll consider it.
Showing that she wasn't really taking it seriously. My mother-in-law was never an old-fashioned bully, and she would always thank me. Even my daughter Lily was very attached to my mother-in-law. When I first heard that my mother-in-law had collapsed, I could never have imagined that things would turn out this way. Because my sister was also living with her, and even though my sister-in-law had a job, my mother-in-law was neither bedridden nor needed 24-hour nursing care. I just thought I'd drop by once in a while and lend a helping hand if needed. But my husband thought differently. "Let's move into my parents' house." My husband told me this after my mother-in-law's collapse, and after a day at work. "What?" Caught by surprise, I stared at him open-mouthed, and he said, "I've already contacted the real estate agent, and we'll terminate the lease at the end of next month." You can't just spring this on me, and moving in together all of a sudden? Wouldn't your mother dislike that? I was shocked and told him so. Despite what I said, my husband said, "It'll be fine, and it's my childhood home after all. I'll be comfortable there, and I know my mom would be happy living with her son and granddaughter." How easygoing could he be? "Well, it might be fine for you, John, since it's your childhood home." "Lily, you'd like to live with Grandma, right?" Asked this by my husband. Our innocent daughter answered,
Yes, Lily loves Grandma.
At that time, I didn't think my sister-in-law would be so terrible, and I seriously thought it would be tough to leave my mother-in-law to Patricia. Patricia must have a tough time handling it all alone. "Let's all pitch in and help until things settle down," I told my husband. In response to my words, my husband replied, "Huh? Help out? Well, yeah, sure." His response was vague, and I wasn't sure if he understood or not. And that's how things went. And before we knew it, we had moved into my husband's family home. As I expected, my mother-in-law had a complicated expression on her face on the first day we moved in.
"I'm really fine, you know. Susan, suddenly moving in? You must have disliked it, right?"
She told me with an indescribable expression on her face. Upon hearing those words, I immediately knew that my husband had made the decision to move in with his mother against her will. But there is such a thing as getting used to circumstances. And despite our initially stiff interactions, my mother-in-law and I gradually became amiable through continued conversations. She willingly helped with dinner and the household chores, saying it was sort of like therapy. My parents' house is far away from the center, and I was deeply moved. My mother and I used to cook together like this. It's kind of nostalgic.
"Lily will help too."
Ever since she started attending kindergarten, my daughter Lily's vocabulary has grown. She plays with a lot of her friends, and her appetite has significantly increased. She's become more assertive recently, and when her favorite clothes are in the wash or she dislikes her hairstyle, she often has a sulky expression. Even that behavior is cute, and I can tell she's becoming more independent.
"I'm taking a day off from kindergarten today."
Even when she puts on a sulky face.
"Oh, Lily, you're looking super cute today, just like a princess."
When told this by her grandmother, she'd often perk up and cheerfully go to kindergarten. My self-centered husband and sister-in-law Patricia continued to be a source of concern, but I began to think that life at my in-laws might not be so bad. I never imagined what would happen next. "Hey, since we started living in my childhood home, you should increase my allowance." One day, my husband actually said this. I didn't quite understand what he meant. "Huh? What do you mean? It's hard to understand." As I said this, my husband looked puzzled and said, "Well, we're living here now, so we're not paying rent or utility bills, right? So you can give that to me as my allowance." He said something stupid like that. Moreover, my husband said it was strange that his allowance remained unchanged, even though our household income should have increased since I started working part-time. "We've come back to my original home, and everything is free." He even said that. What? Free? What's he talking about? Thinking to myself. Was it me, or was my husband crazy? I really couldn't understand what he was saying. If I had to say, I was confident it was my husband who was being ridiculous. Well, it's true that this is your mother's house, but we're living here and we often pay for groceries and daily necessities. The house we lived in was owned by my mother-in-law and had already been paid off by my late father-in-law. It was now her property. I believed that the utilities in the home maintenance fund, property tax, and fire insurance were paid by my mother-in-law and sister-in-law Patricia. Since I do most of the shopping, groceries and daily necessities are calculated from our household budget. For this, my mother-in-law would say apologetically after shopping, "How much was it? Let me pay it this time." But I refused. Sure, our expenses may have decreased a bit compared to when we were renting. But the addition of 2 more people meant that food expenses certainly increased. And when we could spare it, we were gracefully saving up for our daughter Lily's future. Furthermore, I was making lunch for my husband every day, and he rarely ate outside. My husband, who didn't have many friends, spent his holidays at home, mostly playing video games. Did he really need an allowance? I thought, but I gave him a reasonable amount anyway. I couldn't understand what he was so dissatisfied with. But when my husband John realized that our household was covering the living expenses, he muttered, "Why, that's silly," as he walked to his mother's room. What the hell is his problem? The one who's weird is him, not me. As I was thinking this and preparing for our daughter's kindergarten the next day, I began to hear a commotion coming from my mother-in-law's room. I peeked into the room, only to find John furiously questioning, "Why? Why do we have to contribute to living expenses? This is Mom's house, isn't it?" What is he even talking about? That's what I thought. As I glanced at my mother-in-law, she wasn't reprimanding him. Instead, she was just blankly staring at him, as if it was someone else's problem. Her eyes looked like those of a person who had given up on everything. Noticing my presence, John came over to me and said, "We don't have to pay anymore." He left, seemingly relieved, with a smug expression on his face. Watching his triumphant retreating figure, I cursed myself for my poor judgment in marrying such an idiot. However, if things continue this way, I might end up being labeled as a bad wife who doesn't want to contribute to the living expenses, protesting to my mother-in-law, and relying on John. I was getting anxious about this when my mother-in-law chuckled and said, "Susan, shall we have some tea?" She called out to me like that. That's when I heard a certain story from my mother-in-law. I was about to learn a shocking truth and a certain plan of hers. A few days later, my mother-in-law and I were preparing dinner with my daughter Lily, just like we usually do. That day, we were making Lily's favorite dish, dumplings. Lily was also helping out, making dumplings in her own unique shape.
This is fun.
It's good fine motor skills exercise. With that, my mother-in-law also joined in to help. Lily quickly got bored and started playing with toys in the next room. At that moment, my mother-in-law's smartphone, which was lying on the table, rang. The name displayed was John's. "Oh, I wonder if he forgot something." That's what my mother-in-law said. "He probably just forgot what to buy or something." Since our hands were sticky from the dumpling filling, she skillfully used the back of her hand to pull the call on speaker. "Hello, Mom? Hey, come on, answer the phone properly." What a rude guy. This is awkward. I glanced at my mother-in-law, who was silently staring at her phone. "Help out with the shopping once in a while." My mother-in-law forced my husband and sister-in-law to go shopping because it was a holiday. Just as I was about to respond to John on the phone,
John, did Mom answer the phone?
I heard my sister-in-law's voice. No, I couldn't hear anything. Do you think Lily messed with it? Hearing John say that, my sister-in-law began to say something alarming.
But still,
my mother-in-law and I turned pale as we listened to what came next. Our hands were all sticky, but we quickly pressed the record button. The call ended after a while. After washing my hands, I made a call to a certain place.
We're back!
After a while, John and my sister-in-law, who had no idea, returned home. I'm back. Wait, what are you two up to? No wonder my husband John and my sister-in-law looked so surprised. That's because me and my mother-in-law, with a troubled face, were sitting at the table in the living room, glaring at the two of them.
Huh? What's with you two? You're scaring me.
My sister-in-law said something like that.
Sit down. We have something to discuss with you two,
my mother-in-law said, then signaled to me. I nodded suddenly, and then played the recording of their conversation that I had taken earlier.
Still, I guess we can't get Mom's money unless she's gone, right?
My sister-in-law spoke to my husband John in a casual tone, like she was deciding what to have for dinner. Is that so? That's a bummer. You said you found $50,000. That's why I came here. The worst part is Mom is really sneaky. That's definitely Dad's inheritance. We only got a merely $1,000. Their conversation went on. Finally, my sister-in-law said,
She's so slow, it's frustrating, isn't it? Like when she's slowly going down the stairs? Don't you sometimes want to push her?
My sister-in-law said something awful, and my foolish husband John agreed. I totally get it. The call ended abruptly there. The two of them looked visibly uncomfortable, clearly never having imagined we were listening in. Hearing their conversation, I felt a threat to my mother-in-law's safety and immediately consulted the police. However, they didn't seem very helpful, saying it was a family matter. After the call, my mother-in-law said, I understand how you two feel very well. I've been thinking about it for a while now. I'm selling this house and moving. The two of them were surprised to hear this, eyes wide open. Only my stupid husband and sister-in-law have such stupid faces. In fact, I have been consulting with my mother-in-law about this for a while now. The biggest issue was my sister-in-law. Until I heard about this from my mother-in-law, I had assumed my sister-in-law was contributing a fair share towards living expenses. But it turns out, ever since my sister-in-law started working, she hadn't given a single penny to the household. Perhaps she was still stuck in a student mindset, thinking house chores were the mother's job, and constantly complaining.
It's my hard-earned money. I can spend it on whatever I want, right?
She said this and continued to splurge on beauty treatments, vacations, and luxury goods. If you've got so much money, either move out or contribute some to the household. When my father-in-law was alive, my sister-in-law would get scolded like this. Only at that time, it seems that there was a little pretend to help with housework, but after a while it was just back to normal. She never put any money into the house, and since my father-in-law passed away, my sister-in-law had been taking complete advantage of my mother-in-law and doing whatever she pleased.
But Dad said I should save up instead of paying living expenses. And just because I've started working, it's weird to suddenly ask me to contribute to the household.
I knew she was trouble. Nothing's weird about that. My sister-in-law protested.
I am not the bad one.
Well, I wanted you to save money and move out. After I finished raising my kids, I wanted to have a quiet life. How many years has it been since you started working? You don't contribute a cent to the household. You must be quite the wealthy lady by now. My sister-in-law looked frustrated, seemingly lost for words.
I have a job. Moving out all of a sudden is troublesome.
To add insult to injury, My sister-in-law, lost in her delusions, began to say such things.
Why would I take you with me? How silly. You've lived however you've pleased until now. Feel free to continue doing so.
Finally, understanding my mother-in-law's seriousness, both started to panic.
What about the $50,000? Wasn't that our father's money, Mom? Have you been hiding inheritance shares? I might tell the police.
Such were the words of my foolish sister-in-law. When my mother-in-law fell ill, she must have found the bank book by herself. My husband and I got in touch about our mother-in-law, and the conversation somehow shifted to the $50,000. They probably thought they'd get a share too, which is why my husband hastily moved back in. Their stupidity gave me a headache. With a victorious expression, my mother-in-law calmly said, "That was my money from when I was single. Your father had nothing to do with it. You two have been making a fuss about inheritance, but you foolish kids never let me save any money." My mother-in-law told me that my father-in-law's favorite phrase was, "How long do I have to keep working?" Before marrying me, my husband John lived the same way as my sister-in-law, which shocked me to the core. I remember when we were looking for an apartment, he would ask dumb questions like, "What's a security deposit? A key fee? Homeowner's insurance? Aren't utility bills supposed to be around $30 a month?" I cursed my past self. Our conversation must have woken up Lily, who had been sleeping in the next room. With a sleepy face,
"If you do something wrong, you should say sorry, right? Can Papa and my auntie do that? Since you are grown-ups?"
Lily looked at John and my sister-in-law and said, This made me laugh, which seemed to upset my sister-in-law, who then said,
"What's so funny? You must have said something to Mom."
In response to her, my mother-in-law intervened. "Stop it! Stop it!" However, I calmly replied. I laughed because I found it funny. I thought my daughter Lily was acting more mature than you. I calmly said, "I do the laundry, make lunch, but with no appreciation from you two. Lily can say thank you, right? Why can't you utter a single word, sister-in-law? Are you a baby?" I may have overstepped a bit, but my usual irritation exploded into words. "Aren't you embarrassed to make me wash your tacky underwear? Where did your sense of shame go? It'd be better for you to move out and find it." As I spoke indifferently, my red-faced sister-in-law said,
"If you have any complaints, get out. This is our house. Take that annoying kid and get out."
At this point, I had had enough. "Shut up! You should leave. You? Such an idiot!" I shouted with a voice so loud that my throat hurt, but I didn't regret it one bit. A while ago, after dinner, I was watching TV when a segment came up. "Adult men and women living in their childhood rooms are increasing." Apparently, that's what they call people who, although technically employed, use all their salary solely for their own pleasure, continue to live at home with their parents, and leave all household chores to them like some selfish demons. The scariest thing I felt when watching this TV show was not the program itself, but the sight of my husband John and my sister-in-law Patricia laughing uproariously at the feature, asking,
"Are there really such people out there?"
Whether my sister-in-law was silenced by my spirited gaze or what I said. A few days later, the day came when my mother-in-law decided to leave the house. "Well then, I'm putting this place up for sale, so I would like you two to move out by the end of the month." Saying this, she left without revealing her destination. "Who would have thought it would come to this? We have to find a house for the four of us to live in. It would be nice if we could find a nice single-family home." Upon hearing my husband's absurd words, "If it's just the two of you, wouldn't a two-bedroom be enough?" I retorted. And to my words, John laughed, asking, "Two people? How do you figure that?" He and my sister-in-law laughed off the situation, but ignoring them, I said, All right then, let's go, Lily. Shall we go to see my mom? At my words, my daughter Lily also responded,
Yes, I'm happy because it's been a while since I've seen Grandpa and Grandma.
She had a smile on her face. What do you mean? He is flustered, as if he doesn't know what's going on. His confusion was comical, prompting me to say, I'm divorcing you. The thought that Lily and I could be pushed down the stairs one day scares me. I can't live with you anymore. In response to my words, he stammered, that was just a joke, right, sis? My sister-in-law, possibly worried about losing her potential maid, responded, Yes, so let's live happily together. John even had the audacity to suggest living together in my parents' home, to which I responded, How can a person who can't even care for his own parents possibly care for others? That's what I told him. Right then, the taxi we had called arrived. As Lily and I got in, I said, Please feel free to live your life as you wish. I left my in-laws home with a smile. In the background, I could hear John crying out, Don't go! Don't go! Like a child. In the past, I thought that childishness was cute. However, now I can only think of it as, wow, I feel bad. As for John and my sister-in-law, they ended up renting a small apartment with no security deposit or key money, as they had little savings combined. With little life skills and a reluctance to lower their lifestyle, they inevitably struggled to get by. They should struggle. It's too late for regrets. By the way, the reason that my sister-in-law noisily fixed a lunchbox was because she was trying to impress a colleague at work. She didn't know, but the coworker already had a lovely girlfriend. Her lunches, which she obviously didn't make herself, became a topic of office gossip when they abruptly changed from nice meals to something awful in the lunchbox. I heard they caused quite the stir in the office. Apparently, she was the butt of many jokes behind her back. This was a story I heard from a mom friend who happened to work at the same place as my sister-in-law. I couldn't help but laugh. But she's a stranger to me now, so I could care less. Having returned to my parents' home, I now live peacefully with the help of my parents and my daughter Lily. My ex-husband John spent all his free time gaming and hardly ever played with Lily. So far, she hasn't seemed lonely or shed any tears. She has made new friends at her new preschool and seems happy attending there with a smile on her face. When Lily gets a bit older, if she wants to see her father, I'll let her, as that's her right. I wanted to take care of my family and spend each day without any regrets.
I'm done with you two. Just die here. My husband left those words hanging in the air as he abandoned me and our 4-year-old daughter in a snowy mountain. Within the dense wilderness, I had no idea where we were. The icy winds bit into our bodies, making us shiver uncontrollably. We just have to follow Grandma, my daughter suddenly exclaimed. I looked in the direction she pointed, but there was no one there. Still, I decided to follow her lead, because my beloved daughter has some strange power. My name is Nancy, a 32-year-old remote worker. I met my husband Mark, of the same age, at a group blind date. Mark was a charismatic entrepreneur since college and a smooth talker. I fell in love with him and decided to get married. Mark's family was well respected in our local area, so our friends admired and envied our relationship. Shortly after our wedding, at the request of my in-laws, we moved in with them. They were kind people, but my mother-in-law required constant care due to her frail health. Nancy, I heard you are a nurse. My wife is so frail, and I've been so worried. We are grateful that you came into our lives. If I can be of any help, I am more than happy to do so, I replied. I quit my job as a nurse to take care for my mother-in-law and started working from home, as I always wanted. I've always enjoyed web designing and creating websites So I turned my hobby into my profession. It was a job I could do at my own pace, without any strict deadlines. However, one thing that bothered me was that even after 3 years of marriage, we hadn't been blessed with a child. Mark's business was thriving and expanding, opening branches here and there. But he got carried away with his success, frequently going out and rarely coming home. Listen, Mark, your mom isn't doing well. You should spend some time with her. I'm sure she wants to see you, even if she doesn't say so. Huh? You are there for her, aren't you? I'm busy. No matter how much I pleaded for his mother, Mark didn't listen. I wanted to show our child to my bedridden mother-in-law who didn't have much time left, and I felt guilty that I couldn't do that. I'm sorry we couldn't give you a grandchild yet. Don't say that. I'm satisfied to have a daughter like you, Nancy. My kind mother-in-law was like my real mother, since I lost my parents at an early age. On days when the weather was good, I would take her for walks in her wheelchair, or make nutritious soft-boiled food that she could have with ease. I did my best to make her life comfortable. One day, she called me to her bedside. I'm glad. You're going to have a lovely daughter soon. She'll be born around the time Jasmine will bloom, so name her Jasmine. I would be delighted if that's true. I was puzzled by my mother-in-law's strange words, thinking that maybe her sickness was causing her to hallucinate. Not long after, she passed away, leaving me utterly devastated. I had been by her side every day for the 3 years since we got married. Not long after the funeral, I discovered I was pregnant. The due date was in July, the season for Jasmine. Just as my mother-in-law said, it happened, and I was stunned, but more so, I was overwhelmed with joy. I couldn't wait for Mark to come home so I could share the news. Mark, listen! I'm pregnant! Wait, really? I'm not good with kids. I don't think I want any right now. Hey, are you being serious? If you want to have one so bad, go ahead. But I'm not taking care of it. You'll have to raise it on your own. You're deciding to have it, so you better figure out the finances yourself. I was left speechless by his harsh words. I could smell alcohol on him every day when he came home from work. His clothes reeked of sweet perfume. I had a good idea where my husband Mark was spending his time. For him, I was merely a convenient housemaid who took care of his parents. But I couldn't give up on the precious life growing inside me. I managed to get the necessary things using the money I saved from when I was single and the earnings I had from working. And just as my mother-in-law predicted, our daughter was born during Jasmine's blooming season. We named her Jasmine. She was a beautiful child with glowing skin, who resembled my mother-in-law in some ways. Jasmine grew healthily, but she was a unique child. She would laugh and wave her hands when no one was around since she was a baby. When she started speaking broken words around the age of 2, she began talking towards the family shrine. Grandma, do you like Jasmine? Jasmine loves Grandma too. Even when I asked Jasmine who she was talking to, she just smiled. When she was 3, I often saw her deep in conversation with someone in the corner of our loft. Hey, Jasmine, who are you talking to, and about what? Well, Grandma said she will give me her bracelet in the drawer. Grandma did. She said she knitted them using the fabric of her favorite sundress. Intrigued, I opened my mother-in-law's drawer. And there I found a hand-knitted bracelet. Watching Jasmine happily wearing the bracelet, my father-in-law murmured nostalgically, "Ah, those were made from the sundress my wife loved to wear when she was young, so she made them into bracelets. She was skilled at knitting." Surprisingly, it seems that Jasmine can truly communicate with my deceased mother-in-law. But fearing it might bring some harm to her, I decided not to disclose this to anyone. Our days were peaceful, but the good times didn't last forever. Mark was out splurging and abandoned his work. His company was now on the verge of collapsing. We could barely afford our living expenses, relying on the money my father-in-law provided and my earnings. Eventually, Mark had to ask his father for financial help. Thanks to that, his company was somehow able to recover. But would Mark, who continued to lead a carefree lifestyle, change? I was feeling skeptical. One day, Jasmine started saying something concerning. Daddy is planning to do something bad. What do you mean? I don't know, but Grandma seems worried. She told me to be careful. I didn't quite understand what she meant, but her words lingered in my mind. What kind of trouble could Mark get into? Is it something related to his company? A woman? Money? I thought about it, but without any evidence, I couldn't confront him. But just to be safe, I started carrying a voice recorder. And I told my daughter not to tell her father that she could see her grandmother. It was because I had a vague feeling of unease. Then I found numerous receipts from strip clubs and bars while going through Mark's stuff. Despite the company's financial struggle and even after asking his father for help, his habit of going out hadn't changed. I also found a note saying, "Consult the gang about the plan." What was the gang referring to? If what my daughter says is true, my mother-in-law has been warning us. It might be indicating that danger is approaching for me and Jasmine. I got shivers running down my spine. For several weeks afterward, I was on guard, but in the end, nothing more happened. Gradually, my sense of caution was pushed to the back of my mind, and I resumed my daily life. One day, my husband, unusually in high spirits, spoke to me. Thanks to Dad's assistance, my business is doing better, and we're making greater profits. So, how about we go on a family vacation after a long time? Long time? More like for the first time. Oh, is it? Jasmine was so young. I booked a hot spring near an amusement park in the mountains. Jasmine will surely be thrilled. Is that so? My heart was wavering. Though there are still some doubts about my husband, I couldn't completely ignore the desire to believe him, who was showing his gentle face, like old times. If my husband has genuinely changed his mind, this could be an opportunity to mend our relationship. With this thought, I agreed to the family trip. And as I prepared for the trip, I gradually forgot about what my daughter had said, and was excited about the long-awaited trip. On the day of the trip, I was surprised to see the rental car my husband had borrowed. It was equipped with snow-tread tires, which made me slightly afraid, thinking we were heading into a snowy mountain. But I couldn't refuse at the last minute, fearing it would spoil the trip and my husband's mood. I quietly sat in the back seat of the car driven by my husband, with my daughter. But in hindsight, I should have been more cautious. More than an hour after our departure, it felt like my husband was driving deep into the mountains, saying we were heading to the hot spring. Moreover, there was quite a lot of snow. Soon, we passed by the interstate and started driving on a side road, and I thought something was wrong. Hey dear, isn't this road strange? Do you think there would be a hotel on a mountain trail that's this off the interstate? Are you sure we're on the right route? But my husband didn't answer anything and continued driving, his frightening face frowning, looking straight ahead. Feeling anxious, I held my daughter tightly and bit my lip. And then, on the path where there was no road, my husband abruptly stopped the road. You two are of no use to me anymore. Sleep quietly here. Saying that, my husband dragged me and my 4-year-old daughter out of the car. Oh, I almost forgot. I'll be taking your phone with me. Wait, dear! No matter how much I screamed, my husband ignored me. And the moment he started the car, he turned to us, smirked, and drove away. No way. We were left behind. Snow was falling all around, and we didn't even know where we were in the thick forest. My husband had taken my phone, but I had secretly put a spare one in my backpack. Unfortunately, there was no signal, and I couldn't call for help. Still, from the moment the car left the interstate, I had a bad feeling, and both Jasmine and I were wearing our winter coats and had our backpacks on. Moreover, since it was winter, I had many things packed in my bag, for in case anything happened. Although I thought it would be fine, my daughter Jasmine's words had been lingering in my mind. I had prepared various things just in case, but I never expected this to happen. The wind that blew was as cold as ice, making me shiver down to my core. I took out a disposable hand warmer from my backpack, warmed my body, and calmed Jasmine down by giving her a caramel candy to chew on. Even as I did this, the snow only got worse, and it seemed like we were going to end up stranded, all alone. What should we do? As I was at a loss, Jasmine suddenly shouted out, "Mom! Grandma is saying she's coming over here!" I looked in the direction Jasmine was pointing, but there was nobody there. No, I couldn't see anyone, but it seemed like Jasmine could. "We should do as Grandma says." Jasmine confidently started to walk, and I decided to follow her. After all, she has a mysterious power. That's why I believed we'd somehow make it. I think that's what I wanted to believe. I walked carefully through the accumulating snow, holding Jasmine's hand tightly so as not to slip. "Mom, I see a light! Grandma is telling us to go towards it." Indeed, I could see a light in the direction Jasmine was pointing. We're saved, I thought, feeling like I was about to burst into tears. "Thank you, mother-in-law." I quietly whispered my gratitude to my mother-in-law. Finally reaching a hotel at the foot of the mountains, we decided to rest there to warm up. I had put extra cash in my backpack, so I knew we could stay for a while. And now I began to plan my revenge on my husband. Don't think I'll forgive you for this. I'm going to thoroughly investigate why you wanted us dead, so be prepared. 5 days later, I contacted my father-in-law. My father-in-law was very surprised to hear from me, but when he found out that Jasmine and I were safe, he was very happy and came to pick us up from the hotel. According to my father-in-law, my husband had been telling people that my daughter and I fell into a valley in the snowy mountains and died. I was flabbergasted. On top of that, he apparently said, "We searched, but couldn't find them. It doesn't look like we'll be able to find them until spring. And it's sad to leave it at that, but we're going to hold the funeral first." Despite my father-in-law telling him to wait a little longer, he was going ahead with the preparations. Furthermore, my father-in-law handed me something. With that, I found out a shocking truth. Upon visiting my husband, sure enough, preparations were underway for our funeral. Large photographs of Jasmine and I were being displayed as portraits. Then, Jasmine and I suddenly appeared on the scene. "What? How come?" The relatives helping with the preparations were shocked, almost dropping to their knees. Stunned and staring wide-eyed at us, my husband blurted out a silly voice. "Huh? You're alive?" "Unfortunately for you, we're alive and well." How?" "You thought we would die as you planned, didn't you?" After you left Jasmine and I deep in the snowy mountains. What are you talking about? People around us began to stir. No surprise there. If my husband intentionally left us, even though he told everyone we had fallen into a valley in the snowy mountains, this would be a serious crime. Stop lying! Can you say the same after hearing this? I played an audio from the hidden voice recorder I had. I don't need you guys anymore. Just die here. Mark's voice echoed, and the people present started to stir even more. I never said that! She's making up lies! He tried his best to shut me up, but his face was pale and his mouth was trembling. To finish him off, I played a video from my phone. In the video, Mark said, As planned, I abandoned them in the snow-capped mountains. With the life insurance money from my wife and daughter, my company can recover, and I can also enjoy a luxurious lifestyle. Of course, I'll also repay the loan I took from your group with some extra, so please, wait a little. The video perfectly captured him on the phone with someone in the car. He tried to shut off the camera in a hurry, but it was too late. Everyone was whispering, giving Mark cold, scornful looks. How did this get out? Who was it? I asked your father to copy the footage from the dash cam in the rental car you used. Dad, you abandoned your own son? Why would you side with a complete stranger? Mark said as he confronted my father-in-law. However, it seemed that my father-in-law was very angry, glaring at Mark with a terrifying expression. Well, it's no surprise that he would abandon you. After all, you secretly took out a large life insurance policy on not only Jasmine and me, but also on your father. I wonder, when you mentioned group, did you borrow money from a sketchy organization and then targeted our lives? Unbelievable. My father-in-law stood imposingly, thrusting a life insurance policy he found in Mark's drawer at him and shouting, You were planning to kill me too, weren't you? You wanted all my assets to yourself, didn't you? How dare you call yourself my son? And so, with accusations from his father and evidence piling up, Mark, now cornered with no way out, made a startling statement. Look, everyone ended up alive, so it's all good, right? I was forced into doing this by loan sharks. I had it tough too, so forgive me. Don't make me laugh. There's no way I can forgive you. I'll be reporting this to the police. No way! We're a family! You can let this slide, right? Please? And so, Mark got on his knees and bowed in front of us. My father-in-law and I looked at each other in disbelief. I'm sorry. I'll change my ways. Please forgive me. Spare me from the police. I'll turn my life around. With his forehead rubbing against the floor, shedding tears, snot, and drool, Mark made a truly pitiful sight. There's absolutely no way. I'm utterly disgusted with you. You can go to hell. Mark probably expected his apology to solve the situation, though hearing this, he was shocked. One of the relatives who had been listening to our exchange had apparently reported it to the police, and the police arrived to take Mark away. In the end, with all the evidence against him, Mark was convicted of a serious crime for attempting to take the lives of his wife, daughter, and his own father. He will likely be behind bars for a very long time. My husband's company went bankrupt, and it's clear that his life will be miserable even if he gets out from jail, as his family, including my father-in-law, have all turned their backs on him. Furthermore, his friends who led my husband astray have also been arrested. We obviously got divorced, and I won full custody of our daughter, Jasmine. In addition, at the earnest request of my father-in-law, Jasmine and I formed a special adoption bond with him and received his inheritance as a gift while he's still alive. Now we live with my kind father-in-law. He and I enjoy watching over Jasmine's growth. My father-in-law often tells me, "Find a good man and get remarried. I will give you my blessings." But for now, I have no intention of getting married. I am more than happy with my life right now. The other day, Jasmine whispered in my ear, "Grandma says she's glad, but we can't meet her anymore, so she's saying goodbye." It made me a bit sad, but if it means that there's nothing my mother-in-law needs to protect us from anymore, then I guess it's a good thing. Dear mother-in-law, I will protect Jasmine with everything I have. I made a promise to her today as I placed my hands together in front of her grave.